Welcome everyone. I'm going to do a quick video on my current Foundry VTT modules. I solely run Pathfinder 2nd edition right now, so these modules will be focused on um, Pathfinder experience for my Pathfinder players, so be aware of that. First, I'll go to the manage modules and I'll just pull this up and just go down the list here. Some I will speak about, some are not. You'll see some of them are out of date. I will run out of date modules if they're providing some functionality. But I do check them and sometimes they do cause stability issues, so be aware of that. That can be seen here um, on what's the last version. Um, so let's go down to, I think the first one that I'd want to talk about is I really like break time, just to allow everybody to uh, communicate when they are coming and going, and then gives me an idea when people are back, so that breaks can be managed. Cautious Gamer Pack, I really use this for just one piece of functionality. I'll show it here in the configure settings. Let me close this up a little bit here. Maybe put these side by side. That'll probably make some sense to do. Cautious Gamer Pack, I use it for this one reason here. Disable the GM speaking as a PC, so that I don't accidentally talk as a player's characters, which I kind of find to be unintentionally rude. And then Challenge Tracker can be used. I find uses for it. It shows up down here as this simple system. I've used it for doing harrowing and other things, and it provides some basic functionality to build out a sort of checkbox resource system that is editable. Um, so that sometimes gets used, and I routinely load it just in case. Um, Chat Commander, it looks a little out of date. I haven't used it recently. Combat Utility Belt. A lot of the functionality in the Combat Utility Belt, I find the workbench um, overlaps with, but I still have it loaded for now. Cursor Hider I find very useful because you will find that some players will metagame by watching where your cursor goes, because if you're clicking on monsters or adjusting them, say behind a wall and it's blacked out, they'll still see your cursor over there, and you'll see them drawn to it, and their behaviors will change based on that. The way that shows up here is right here. If I just click it here, then the cursor is being hidden, and if I click it again, then it is not being hidden. Um, Other ones, I like the damage log that shows up over here. Some players use it. Oh, mine's empty right now because I just cleared my chat log, but you can decide whether the players can see it or not. I'll show that here. And there's some functionality whether you want the players to be able to redo undo damage, which I like. I find that's convenient. Dice So Nice. The animations for the dice are great. You can make sounds. Um, I'll just click this one here and show this real quick so that there's additional add-ons so you can get more themes. The special effects are really nice, so you can add abilities like on my D20s when I roll a 20, I want it to do the epic wind sound, and so that's fun. The Dice So Nice does cause a significant performance hence when the 3D dice roll. So many times players on machines on lower end hardware will need to disable this one, so be aware of that. The dice tray is this functionality down here, really pretty useful for just rolling generic rolls. The drag ruler is key for um, um, letting given a visual indicator of a token's how far a token can move. I'll demonstrate this here. I'll pull Nigeria out here, and we can see. Oh, of course, I'm on a map that doesn't have a grid, so it doesn't show it. So I can't demonstrate that. But I will point out that this down here using the allow for pathfinding for players and pathfinding by default, so that they're not pulled across walls or you don't get that error about running into a wall, is very nice. Force client controls, force client settings. This is what you see here where I can force client side controls on players. I don't do it often, but there are some situations where I will force a control on a player. Maybe they're struggling to troubleshoot their own machine, and I can force their client settings to help them troubleshoot, especially like hardware performance issues. Foundry summons, very nice, allows players to run their own summons for those summon monsters, spells. Foundry Anniversary dice goes with Dice So Nice. Arms Reach is out of date. I haven't actually looked at it lately. I don't know if that functionality has been integrated someplace else, but that keeps players from opening doors at distance. So their token needs to be adjacent to the door. Um, let's see here. Others worth talking about. Initiative double clicks allows you to double click a character's role in the encounter tracker. Image hover will pop up the token's image in the lower left hand corner wherever you like it. I really enjoy that one. Mass edit is for editing multiple tokens. If I pull two tokens out here and I select them both, I can edit. Here's the mass edit token. I can edit both at the same time, which is really useful for editing tokens on an entire map. Full cred to Wayfaring Panda for showing me that one. The entire Monk series I find very useful. I don't use the enhanced journal because it conflicts with some of the adventure paths I use from Paizo. I find I get freezes with that, so right now I have it turned off. But the combat markers and the combat details down here are especially nice. I really like the functionality for requesting uh, various saves. I can say DC 25. I want to show it, and we're going to request a perception check for cold, and cold can see that and make the roll and the responses. This is a very nice, elegant system for doing on-the-fly rolls. The hotbar expansion allows for having all 5 hotbars pop up. I find that very convenient too. Scene navigation just changes up the architecture, the hierarchy of the maps up here. Um, then going down, OBS utilities, very useful for streaming. Uh, let's see here. Party resources. I use this one sometimes. Let me see if here this creates a simple label that I can create and I can add numbers to. So this is nice for the influence subsystem. for reputation subsystems in Pathfinder where I can create a faction, give them a name, and then I can give them a default value, and then I can run them up and down. So that's I use it a lot for the reputation system. Close that. And then we get into the Pathfinder specific system. Path Muncher is invaluable as it's used for importing Path Builder characters, which many players use. The shopping experience is nice because it has some pre-made loot actors with Pathfinder items in it. Action support is absolutely key for integration with Workbench and automation. Let me show you that real quick. Right now they're doing Pathfinder action support. Pathfinder, did I miss it? It is too early in the morning. There it is, Pathfinder action support. I think they're at the higher levels, it's handling critical specialization effects and auto critical specialization saves. This speeds up high level play quite a bit. So that's been really useful since they've implemented that. PF2 animation macros. It's a support macro uh, that pops into your compendium. Animation macros. Let's see, PF2. Maybe I don't know what that one does. I'll come back to that one. Let's see here. Compendium. This does the let's see. Oh, I thought it was animal. Maybe it's animal. There it is. Animal companions. And then this is you can pull this functionality onto a token to create an animal companion, and it'll make the adjustments automatically. Really pretty critical for for any character that's playing an animal companion. And let's see, I use the PF2 Duraco UI, the Duraco UI, which is really great about that. And this is a recent change for me, is that you can get it to associate your Foundry identity to the character so that they're colored according to who's doing the actions. When the chat gets really busy, this is very helpful to find your own activities and identify others. Um, let's see here, going down the list. Oh, and let me just show that on the Duraco. That's specifically here, chat message header. So if I enforce that on the players, I can make them use that with the client force settings. PF2 giveth, incredibly useful, allowing players to move their own move items amongst themselves. That frees me up. Otherwise, that's a pretty cumbersome thing that you're doing for players that they really can do for themselves. Going down the list here, interactive tooltips. There's a couple of different ways to do this, but I like the tooltips here. I find them to be pretty useful. Let's see if I can get my interactive tooltips to show. There we go. It's kind of underneath the window here. Let's shorten this one up a little bit. So when we see the tooltips, this is uh, I used to use the Action HUD, but I switched to the interactive tooltips, and you can see it's got great functionality for representing the character sheet without opening at hero points, temporary hit points, regular hit points, armor class. Here's the take cover macro. Here's the raise shield macro. Here's the shield stat. Here are saving throws. All of them can be rolled from here. Um, and then dying, wounded conditions, current speed, you make attack rolls from here normally. Full functionality. There's a lot of ways to format this, so it can be double columns and so forth. Equipment, spells, skills, and then there's some extras, and you can drop any macros you want to use here. Um, so I find this a very powerful tool. Going down the list, Monster Maker, really useful for home brewing so that you can generate monsters. I'll show you that real quick. If I pull up, um, let's see here, I think I need to do it in a new actor. I think it'll only work if I do a NPC, create new actor. So, yep, there's the Monster Maker. I click on it, and then you can just quickly put in, I want it to be a level 11 monster. I want to use it as a basic roadmap as a soldier. It'll automatically fill in kind of soldier stats. You can adjust these if you want to. I'll call him Bob. And then at the bottom, I hit submit, and Bob becomes an 11th level creature. And it doesn't do everything, still have to fill out the strikes and put in the custom actions and passives, but you have a general outline of saving throws, of hit points, of initiative, and that gets you about 60% of the way towards building your NPC, which is super convenient. Going down the list here, interactive tooltips, keybind menagerie, very useful. The keybind menagerie it goes to a slightly different. This is really over here for the configure controls. I'll pull that up real quick. And when we go down to the keybind menagerie, this is where you can put a whole bunch of Pathfinder 2e hot shortcut keys. It used to be F is for flat-footed, now it's F for off guard. You'll see that some of the ones I use most commonly are um, I have enfeebled set to the hotkey, I have frightened to F, I have grab to G, I have invisible to I use Alt P for prone. I used to use P, but now the party functionality demanded I use Alt P. And then I have stunned and undetected, which I use a lot. So that's very useful. The hotkeys really are really speed up gameplay once you master them. So I recommend using and learning your hotkeys. Going down the list, we keep going. Ranged combat just automates the functionality of the reload um, functions. Sometimes it can be a pain as players get frustrated with the reload macro, but I still like it. The reaction checker sends those whispers about reminders about attacks of opportunity, retributive strike, and so forth. Um, the rules element generator is out of date. I'm not sure where they're at on this. I still use it to do some rule generation. If you are not familiar with this, I'll just show this really quickly. Um, Let me think about it. Let's see what we've got here. Yes, so I made one here, which is an effect. This player would turn into a beast, and whenever so I'll just show that real quick. Whenever the effect would go on, they would turn into this creature, and then whenever they would finish their rage, they would pop back, and then that's done through this rule elements here, where I could write some of these basic rule elements and reference the token, and it's a very powerful tool. And so the generators right here, which is a bit of a kind of a wizard, and it gives you some drop down options on which kind of rule you want to adjust, the flat modifier being the most common one. So that's what that does, is give you that little wizard right there. Continuing on, a workbench clearly is the key Pathfinder module, and has incredible amount of automation for the Pathfinder system, mystification for items, manage reminders. This is where the hero point handler is at. Um, Quality of life settings, you'll see I use quite a few of these. This is specifically hiding spells, um, so that the players don't see the spell unless they actually do the attempt to identify it. Um, World automation, I find these to be extremely helpful. I have most of these turned on, which manage the dying. And then I also enforce the targeting in the system, manage client settings. This is doing a range of automation around applying persistent damage, automatically handling dying recovery, decreasing fright, and so forth. And then they've got functionality if you want to use the automatic bonus progression. Um, and then you'll see I have most of my chat collapsed, which is very useful for keeping the chat as clean as possible, so there's not a lot of scrolling. Um, so yes, well, Workbench is just a wonder. And then pings are this functionality here. Uh, Polygot, one of my favorite modules, which is being able to enforce languages on characters. So we can see that if I have Cold selected, Cold can speak Orcish, and then you can see that they have an actual Orcish font built into Polygot, and if the player can, or if the character has, if the player who owns the character has Orcish in their language, they will be able to see the hi there. If they do not, they will only see the unreadable Orcish text. So players really love that. I enjoy role playing with that. It's a fantastic role playing tool. Um, Routing libs was a part of the drag ruler. It's required to get the pathfinding ability going. Safety tools I use for communications, very good tool. This allows us to do the various communications anonymously, which is kind of become a core communication tool for safety and communication of the group. Um, Simple calendar, very powerful tool. You'll see I have it set up down here, which allows us to control the Galarian calendar, move through the days, uh, create notes if you're about the seasons and the days and the weeks. And it's also useful for managing the lockouts and so forth, because you can advance the calendar by hour. You can say, well, it's been an hour, and those buffs that have 1 hour durations will drop off. Okay, it's been 3 hours. It's been one day. So that's really useful for auto managing the duration of buffs. Splatter is drops blood when the tokens are wounded and leaves it on the map. Um, Tabletop music has a great selection of music that I use. Um, Token frames, absolutely necessary for managing the tokens right along with tokenizer. I'll just show that functionality real quick if you haven't seen it. If I pull this up, and we can see that when I click here, I can manage the tokens. Oh, I've got the auto token reset going. I need to change that. But then when I come down here for the token frames, this is what gives me my vast selection of token frames that I can choose from. And this gets updated by the creator, and they're always adding new tokens. So full credit to them, and thank you for that. Go ahead and close that. And then torch is a simple functionality for uh, setting up lights on the token, so you don't have to pull effects on. And I think that's, oh, and peek around corners, because sometimes the Foundry will draw from the center of the token versus the edges, and sometimes they like to be able to allow the players to peek. So that's a lot. Hopefully that was useful, and I might do a breakdown of these, but I just wanted to give a quick overview, and I'm going to post this in my Discord if anybody wants to take a look at it. Have a great day.